Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner and to a Cardfight record deck profile. In this video I'm going to be going over Gear Chronicles Zodiac Time Beast deck, which if you ask me is the best deck of the format going into Premium Standard, in which afterwards God only knows what's going to happen. But yeah, this is ZTB, first time I've actually featured it on the channel in a capacity like this, but I've been playing with this for the better part of the last half year. And much like I do with other profiles, I'll be going over the cards in here, talking about some things you can do, and as well as some other options. And with that being said, let's dive right into this. So, when it comes to this deck, we gotta talk about the Grade 3 boss monster, Chroncile Dragon Z. Jet G's skills are very simple, but very good, in that the first one allows you to bind a Grade 3 ZDB from your drop zone in order to stride for free. And his other skill is on stride, Soul Blast 1, choose any rearguard in play, bot deck it, and if you do, call a ZDB from your deck that is one grade higher than the bot deck unit, and shuffle your deck. So, you can use this on your own units, or you can use this on your opponent's units in order to out a threat, and then you get a free call out of the deck. It's toolboxing, consistency, and the free striding alone allows you to just play this deck more aggressively in the early game, because you don't care about guarding off with your stride fodders, or even calling them down to use as attackers. Because as long as you have grade 3s in drop zone, you can stride. And this is just one of the many reasons why this deck is just so good at what it does. It's consistent, in addition to having power and some of the best strides and G-Guardians in the game. Then for the backup 3s, I'm running one copy of Replenish Kodal, otherwise known as Snek, whose skill is GB1. When it's called from the deck, you can have a gain 3k, and if you have no cards face up in damage zone, you can also countercharge one. Some people run 2 of these things, and then sometimes they'll run one of this and one of the Ox. I'm running one copy of Prestige Sheep, who for counterblast 1, non-gen break, you can bind it and a card from your drop zone face up in order to draw a card. It helps fill up your drop zone, your bind zone for some of your bind-oriented effects. A couple of your cards require you to be at 5 or more cards in bind zone to get max value, and this helps you get there. One of your cards also lets you tutor grade 1s from bind, and he can also set this up. Then for the grade 2s, 4 copies of Metal Party Dragon, who has a continuous skill of, if you have no cards in bind zone, this thing cannot attack, and Generation Break 1, Counterblast 1, bind this unit. After the battle that this thing was boosted, you may pay a cost. If you do, you choose a grade 1 in 3 ZDB from your bind zone, and call them to a column. The original text on here says separate, but it's a column. So, what's good about this thing is, it's a 10k body that has a really powerful effect as the game goes on. It enables multi-attacks. And the thing about the first skill is that it is a continuous, not an auto, which means Shiranui Rine and Shiranui Zanki do not disable this if you call them from hand. So if your opponent's playing Dominate and they want to dominate this thing, they need to have their own cards bound in order to actually swing with this guy. Then for the other grade 2s, 4 copies of Rewind Tiger, who on placement you can counterblast 1, rest 1 of your rear guards. If you do, you bind the top card of your deck. If it's a ZDB, you may draw a card, and it gets plus 2k until end of turn. It's a 10k attacker during the early game. It gets you draws. You can always just do things like bind one of your crits and then use your crit effect. And it just allows you to bully your opponents that much easier in early game, allow you to win the grade 2 gaming. Like, this deck's grade 2 game is pretty strong now, and it will fight you for first stride like nobody else can. Then running it out, 2 copies of Cruising Dragon, 2 copies of Superior Unicorn, and 1 copy of Duplex Dragon. So we'll go over these in different order. So Duplex Dragon, much like Tiger, it has a skill that allows you to do things, which is Soul Blast 1, and then if you do that, you can bind the top card of your deck, and if you do that and you bind a ZDB off of this, you can choose one of your opponent's rear guards whose grade is equal to or less than the card bound, and then you may tuck it. The important thing about this guy, though, is that you can only do this if you have a grade 3 Vanguard. These 2 are Generation Break restricted, and they both have the common skill of GB1. If you have a Chronojet Vanguard, they get power plus 2000 and an additional skill. And they are, for this guy, it's Counterblast 1 on Vanguard attack. You may pay cost. If you do, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add 1 ZDB from among them to your hand and put the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. And this guy is on Vanguard attack, Counterblast 1. Look at the top cards of your deck for every ZDB you have in play. You choose a ZDB not named this card from among those cards, call it, and then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So this guy here acts like is just easy spot removal. I'm not playing it in multiples because aside from like drawing it going first and riding the 3, I don't really want to see it ever early game since it's restricted to grade 3. If I really do need to get to this, I can always turn it out of the deck through Jet Z or my other skills. This guy enables extra attacks, much like Rewind Tiger, except Rewind Tiger only calls like to a column. This allows you to call to a different spot, and you have the potential to restand this. And this lets you fetch cards, which is very important for certain matchups like Dominate, where you want to see your heal triggers, or decks where you need to see your perfect cards. If you do not like the idea of running Rewind Tiger in the deck, you can cut all 4 of them out and play 2 additional 10Ks, and then you can either max out on this or run 3 of these guys. Then for the grade 1s, for Steam Tamer Arca, this is the ZDB PG, so skill is, when it's placed on guard circle, you discard a ZDB in order to choose one of your units and it cannot be hit. And her other skill, and the reason why she's like 30 bucks, is that when it's in the drop zone, you can, at Generation Break 2, bind this card, or rather bind another copy of this card and a ZDB trigger in order to add this back to your hand. It's a reusable perfect guard, and it's one of the most, if not the most free way to do this. You can get 6 uses out of this as the game goes on, and yeah, like, people talk about how good Ezra's is. That's because Ezra's is basically based off of this thing. Arca is dumb. Then, for Revolver Drake, okay, this is the ZDB Stride Fodder, and much like the Regalia one, you just call it to rear, reveal grade 3, add a ZDB from your deck to your hand, and discard something, and because Jet Z exists, again, you can just call this down, reveal Jet Z, grab another Jet Z, discard the Jet Z, and you still get to just stride without having to really compromise your hand. And yeah, like, this guy's really good early game now. Who would have thought? 3 copies of Transit Dragon. This is your Jeffrey clone, so as long as you have a grade 4 Chronojet Vanguard, and after it boosts, you can throw it to the soul and draw a card. And then running it out to grade 1s, 3 copies of Pulsar Mary Block Dragon. Mary Block skills are, first off, in deck and drop zone, it counts as a grade 3 as long as you have a grade 3 Vanguard, so as long as you're on Jet Z. So this means that if you tuck a grade 2, you can call this out because it's treated as a grade 3 in deck. And if you're on Jet Z and this is in your drop zone, you can just bind it and stride for free. And the reason why him being bound is good is at the end of the battle, or rather, yeah, we'll get into that in a bit, but this guy's skill is GB1. When it boosts, you may have it gain power plus 2000 for every other ZDB you have in play. And at the end of that battle, this gets bound. Now, the reason why this guy getting bound is so good is it's arguably your best grade 1 target for the effect of your Mary Block, your Transit Dragon, as you can just swing with this, resolve this guy's skill to bind itself, then resolve this guy's skill to bind himself, and then you just call a grade 1 and another one of these back and you just do this again. Yeah. I mean, not much else to really say. Like, this deck is really consistent and really straightforward too. Like, truth be told, I'm actually getting rid of it because it is just that simple to play. But yeah. And as far as the triggers go, I'm running 4 of the Malevolent Jinn clone, 4 of the new crit from the new set, which is Bombard Hog. It's basically a ZDB version of Red Lightning, except you bind this card face up in order to countercharge 1. 4 copies of the Dumb Hypnosis Sheep, who GB1, when it's called from hand until end of turn, it gets the ability of on rearguard. After your other unit attacks, you can put this card into the soul and bot deck any one of your rearguards to choose one of your units at rest and stand it. This is what makes cards like your Proceed Unicorn. No, I'm talking about, this is what makes your Unicorn really strong, is you can swing with the Unicorn, call a thing, and then use the Sheep skill to bot deck something, stand the Unicorn back up, and swing it again. Or if you say sack a lot of crits on something, you can use the Sheep to turn that thing into an extra attacker. Like, it's a stand trigger that turns one of your rearguards into a Tidal Assault, except our rearguards are better, so yeah. And then running it out, 4 copies of the ZDB Heal, and 1 copy of the new Drawn Z. So, Drawn Z skills are, first off, when you ride a grade 2 or greater ZDB, you can bind this card from your field face up. If you do, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and add 1 grade 1 or grade 3 ZDB from among them to hand, and then while this card is in the bind zone, you can also discard a card in order to add this card back. So the first skill is basically a grade 3 searcher, but with the added bonus of being able to hit grade 1s as well. So you can get your grade 3s, your Stride Fodder, Perfect Guard, Mary Block Dragon, and such forth and such forth. And this other skill is also pretty good because it basically allows you to turn the worst card in your hand into a 10k shield. And ditching grade 3s for this effect is not awful either, because you will be able to bind them off for Jet Z and still stride. So It's a really good starter. It's not GB, it's restricted for the important part, which means against decks like Kagero, Link, Joker, and the Mirror, you can get it out of dodge. Like, yeah, this is a pretty standard main deck. Like, aside from like tweaking the grade 3s and the grade 2s, I'd say my build's like nothing different from the norm. And yeah, so next we'll go over the G-Zone. When it comes to the G-Zone, I've noticed like a couple variations in how some cards are played, but otherwise, this is pretty much a standard ZDB G-Zone. It just comes down to do you have dust or not. So for the strides, first off, 2 copies of Metal Pulse or a Split Pegasus. First things is that while this card is face up in the G-Zone during your turn, all of your ZDBs in the front row get power plus 1,000, or is it 2,000? I always forget. Yeah, it's 1,000. So, yeah, if after you end your turn with this thing, you'll usually have like a plus 2k buff to the front row, which does come up. And his other skill is once per turn, kind of +1, flip anything, but you'd rather prefer it to be this guy. Choose one of your ZDBs. No, choose one of your units. My bad. Yeah, you just need to have a ZDB heart card for this, and you choose one of your grade 1 or greater rear guards, you return it to the deck, and then you call up to 2 ZDBs with 1 grade less than the returned card from your deck to field. So, you put a grade 3 into deck, you call 2 2s, you put a 2 back, call 2 1s. This is useful for if you, say, spin your opponent's grade 2, and they call a 3, you can put that 3 back, and then you can call, say, if you need to build up a hand, you can call 2 of your Transit Dragons, no, Cruising Dragons. I always get Cruising and Transit backed up. If you need to remove something, you can call one of these guys, and then call a Mary Block, a Metal Party, or if you need grade 1s, you can tuck one of your 2s back and just call multiple grade 1s. This guy's really good if you need to like start some combos, but you already have a good amount of combo pieces in hand. And then 2 copies of Metal Pulse or Abner Phoenix. Abner Phoenix's skill is Generation Break, Counterblast 1, Persona Flip. When this attacks a Vanguard, you may pay cost. If you do, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and for every face-up card in G-Zone, you can call 2 ZTPs from up to 2 ZTPs from among them to rear guard, and the rest and everything else goes to the bottom of the deck. And its other skill is Generation Break 3. All of your ZTP rear guards get power plus 2,000 during the turn. So it's basically, as often described, a glorious reigning dragon, but cheaper. And you can do this on first stride. Doing this first stride basically will mean you get an extra 2 cards. If you do this on second stride, though, you can call potential full board. If you're up against removal, this will probably be your second stride because it allows you to just call a full field, and then afterwards you can push with Gear Next or something like that. But I have gone into this first stride, and I've killed people on first stride because this deck's increased aggression in early game. Then 2 copies of Chrono Dragon Gear Next. This one we all know. Skill, act once per turn, Generation Break 2, Soul Blast 1, Persona Flip, and this guy gets the ability of, at the end of the battle, this attack to Vanguard, you may pay the cost of returning any 3 ZDBs from hand or field to the bottom of the deck, and then afterwards you stand this thing, and it gets drive -2. However, Generation Break 4, when this thing stands and attacks for a second time, it gets drive +1 and plus 10k. So basically you swing 26, get your 3 checks, afterwards you either put 3 from hand or field, or a combination of both, to the bottom of the deck, stand, swing a 36, and 2 more checks. It's a restander, not much else I can say about that. And then moving on to the fun stuff. So first off, we've got Chronovisor Heritage. So Heritage is dumb. Heritage skill is choose 4 face-up ZDB units in your G-Zone, put them face down. At the end of the turn, you may pay the cost, and that is... no, at the end of the turn that this returns to G-Zone, you may pay the cost. If you do, you take an extra turn, you just skip your ride phase, and you stride this guy back down, and that pretty much it. Like, you get basically an extra draw, you get to stand your board, get the call cards down, and just do it all again. Like, it's an extra turn in a game like this, where an extra turn just can outright win things. Heritage is one of your main win cons, and truth be told, once you go into this, you should hopefully be closing the game out. If you can't Heritage, then chances are it's because, I don't know, the game just doesn't allow you to go for, like, sometimes you might not have any cards in hand to actually call down. In that case, going to Heritage is kind of weak. Instead, Gear Next or Mystery Freeze might be better for that. But if you're able to call a board down, and you have the conditions met for Heritage, i.e. you went to one of these guys first stride, and then you were able to double G-Guard, or you were able to go one of these guys and Gear Next, then Heritage will get you there. Not much else I can really say about this guy. Like, it's been talked about ad nauseum before. This card's really, really strong. Then 1 copy of Metal Pulsar Mystery Freeze Dragon. This just is in here. Like, if I had Dust, this would probably be the card I would cut for it, but act once per turn, Generation Break 3, Counterblast 2, shuffle your deck, then you bind the top 4 cards of your deck face up, and what is it? If you bind a grade 3 off of this, you get Quad Drive, and for every card grade that is bound, your opponent cannot call things to Guardian Circle that from hand that against this thing. So if I bind, say, a grade 0, 1, a 2, then your opponent cannot guard against this with Perfect Guards, Triggers, and grade 2s. G-Guardians are obviously an exception. And if I hit the 3, I get Quad Drive. It's a sack card, but it's just a thing. And then 1 copy of Untitled Dragon. You can Counterblast 1, bind a Z to B from hand in order to stride this thing, and then you can act once per turn, flip anything, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may choose up to 2 cards, and yeah, you can bind them face up. And after you do this effect, if you have 5 or more cards face up in your bind zone, you get the countercharge 1, which is where the Proceed Sheep helps for that. And 1 copy of Sea Breeze. This card's still very much needed, and it will still be needed going to a new format. And on to the G-Guards. 2 copies of Pulsar Saver Ishil. Skill is Soul Blast 1 when it's placed on guard circle, and the number of face-up cards in your bind zone is 1 or more. It gets plus 5,000 shield. And if you also have an additional, if you have 5 cards in a bind zone, then it gets an additional 10,000 on top of that. It's very much like the Regalia PG and a G-Guard, so it's a potential extra 15k shield. The important thing is it's a ZDB G-Guardian, so if you open with multiple heals early game and you're able to get the first stride, then you can second stride Heritage off of this thing. That's pretty much what it's really in here for. 2 copies of a Heterohound Dragon. This is also one of the cards you could cut for Dust if you want to. I am playing this though because we have multiple Nubatama players in this area, and Heterohound is very powerful against Rene. You G-Guard one of the Rene-dominated units' attacks and use Heterohound to spin the other one off. Now, what happens in this instance is that you shuffle your deck and your opponent gets to call the top card of their deck to rearguard, but you don't care. You're stopping 2 really threatening attacks, especially if it's Rene's Generation Break 3. Otherwise, though, yeah, you could just cut one of these out. 1 copy of Uluru, who once placed on guard circle, you choose a grade 0 and a trigger and a non-trigger from drop zone, bot deck them to get plus 5,000. And then 1 of Big Uluru, who is your flip G-Guardian. And when it's placed on guard circle, you can Counterblast 1, flip a G-Guardian face up. And if you do, this gets plus 5,000 for every face up card in the G-Zone. It's just your obligatory super big G-Guardian in order to fight against things like Dragstrider, Luard, or Balam. So that's the deck in a nutshell. Hope you guys enjoyed this. As I mentioned before, I believe this is the best deck of the current format and will continue to be going into the new series, as I just feel like it has pretty much everything at its disposal. It's got some of the best main deck cards in the game, one of the best early games in the game now. It can fight for first stride like nobody else. It has pretty much no bad matchups, truth be told. Like, if there were any bad matchups, like Chaos, that got pushed out by the rest of the decks in the format, it can beat pretty much all the other competitive decks of the current format. Like, Dominate is, I think a 70-30 or 60-40 in your favor type matchup. And Dominate can win if they get the high roll and just an overall good hand throughout the match, but you should beat them more often than not because of our really good G-Guardians and our much better early game. You get the Heritage, you should win. Gear Next is also by no means a bad card. I don't really know what else I can say. Like, it's Gear Chronicle. We've all been like mocking this clan for just how good it is for a while now, but I mean, can't argue with the results. Like, consistency is such a powerful thing to have in a card game, and some of the best decks in this game's history have been because they were so consistent. Overlord was such a good clan during set 13 and onwards format was because of its consistency. Let's see, Time Leap was really good because it was also consistent at what it did. Ripples were great because they were consistent. Vanguard, yeah, like early builds of Vanguard with Sword Meat, they were also consistent. Like, at the end of the day, I do feel like consistency rules above all other else. Like raw power or cheesy gimmicks or such, they're nice to have in some clans. They can definitely kill you with their gimmicks, Rene. But at the end of the day, though, I do believe like if your deck has like toolboxing and just redundancy, it will win out over everything else, unless that everything else just outright savages you in terms of RNG. But Gear Chronicle, on the other hand, seems to have the power of plot armor as well, so hey, that's always a plus to have. I am curious to see where they will go with this clan in the new series, just because Gear Chronicle up to this point has been so centered around Chronojet and ZDB that most of its best cards, particularly the Strides, they're kind of restricted to that, and whatever they do in Vanguard V, it's not going to be Jet. So what will happen with Gears as a result? That will remain to be seen. As for me, though, I'm actually like done with this clan for the foreseeable future, as I don't really feel like playing ZDB anymore. It's not as fun as, say, Time Leap or earlier Gears, so I'm getting rid of it. And as a matter of fact, one of my friends is actually getting this off of me and giving me Pale Moon exchange. So I don't know when it will be, but I do plan on building at least some variation of Harry and whatever comes out of the V series for Pale Moon. I have a list in mind, so we'll just go off of that. And then as far as like immediate deck profiles go, Night Rose is pretty much all set and done. I just have to like play around with a little bit more to familiarize myself with the combos again. And yeah, after Night Rose, it's just a matter of I either have Harry built and ready to go, or VBT series starts. Either way, I hope you guys stay tuned for that. And in regards to the Q&A video, that will come out next week, so if you still have questions you want to ask, you can either post those questions in the comment section of the first Q&A video, or even down in here. I'll be checking the comment section in this video and any other videos I post up leading up until the answers video that comes out again next week. And that's all I got to say, so I hope you guys enjoyed all of this. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, this is Blue Star 899, jacking out.